What's up, guys? Heading Cup 5 finishes today, and it was a good result. Well, it was for me and it was for Hera. I didn't have time to put this detective guide video together yesterday, so I might as well do it today, especially considering how the result went. Anyway, the full thread is on Twitter, it's on AoE Zone. I thought I might as well make a video, go for it just now. There's going to be, if there's ever going to be another Hidden Cup, it's going to be there. You're going to be able to rely on the same principles that I used, so let's just go for it. Let's just go for it. I've got my detective guide. I made the thumbnail anyway. I like the thumbnail, so let's do it, guys. Anyway, yes, Hidden Cup 5 is about to come to close. I think it's safe to say we are all well and truly cooked. There was a lot of cooking that went on. A lot of humbleness. It's more difficult than ever. Hidden Cup 2 was the first big AoE tournament I ever watched, and every edition since there's been major cookings. The Max and the Gal come to mind. The Max one's crazy because the 90 and the second one fought that was tattle with. Crazy amount of accuracy thought he was getting at, but it turned out to be the Max. And I think there was a training partner theory with the Max and Valessa thinking it was Team Secret at the time, which is former GL. But there's been a lot this time, guys, as we found out yesterday. A little bit background about myself. In the last couple of years since the last Hidden Cup, we have run our own Hidden Cup for UK players. Now, I'm not going to say I'm no expert at guessing players. But it was a very fruitful training ground to work out to guess players and find some processes that work in this format. The format is... it's not your typical format. So, it can be difficult to just pinpoint someone, especially when we have new players and everything. Let's talk about some things that I kind of do. Some of my favourite things to work out who's out. Start with the most obvious candidates. If you're going to start to try find out it's definitely them, you have less work to do at the end, probably. The grammar and the punctuation there is terrible. This is a thing when you write something, don't bother proofreading it. As much as you can think I can see X doing this, also I can't see X doing this as a very valid way to narrow down players for who is who. Yes. But this is big. This is very big. Trust in the drafts. What civs do two players is meant to be a do. What civs do players like to do? Like to use probably is better, and especially what are their maps of strength. Don't forget the training partner theory. Yes, that one's big. This has typically been something that's happened in previous editions with training partners picking similar common things, and drafts. Coughs, Koreans equals GL. Koreans GL is very, very, it's so GL. Whenever you see Koreans in a map draft or a civ draft, they're pretty big indicator. Here's a big one, gameplay. People's gameplay doesn't magically change for Hidden Cup. Daisy? The proof is in the pudding. If someone has amazing control grid monks, there can only be so many people. We'll talk about this. Although I'm perfectly aware that I will contradict myself here. Sometimes though you have to take an educated guess and a gamble. Trust the details, the farms, the bowlers, and the mining camps. The details are very, very important. Okay, so here are the first, this is first three, but it's the first four. First four players I found the most obvious to place. Almost all based in gameplay, draft, and vibe alone. This is the smartest way to start and make your job far easier if you can nail some players down and work on the question marks. They are the humbled. So, you want to try and get the most obvious ones, cross them off your list, done and dusted, then you can focus on the rest of them. Makes the most sense, right? So we start with Vasco da Gama, who I said it was Hera, and it seemed to be Hera quite obviously from the beginning. Ever, in my opinion, should be one of the most clear players to guess, based on pure gameplay. He is the best player in the world. If anyone is dominating, then there's a good chance it's him. No one does it like Hera now, guys. Hera is fast becoming a new Viper. There were quite a few instances when I thought, okay, this has to be Hera. When you say this has to be Hera, it means it can't be anybody else. These are the kind of moments when you think that no one else would do something like this. I just repeated what I was, yeah. The Ethiopian pick on slopes is odd, man. I don't read enough anymore. Slopes is odd. When that happens, I think automatically consider this to be something only Hera or Weavy would do. It's an odd pick. It's an archer pick as well. Slopes is generally pretty cav dominated, so yeah, Ethiopians don't really have good cav options. It was a weird one. To kind of like summarize that point, Dave put it well. Hera might have some good success in trading games with the Civ, and now thinks it's good. The thing is with Hera, you can pick a lot of Civs, make them good. Doesn't mean they're the best Civ. The Turk's fast imp. We've all seen the build order from Hera, right? It's kind of an old thing. But it came back after he made the build order video. He definitely likes the strat, and he's no stranger to fast tempo eco plays on closed maps. If you circle back to like NEC, he was doing that a bit. And you think about the Aztecs game that he ended up playing against Atos, kind of low eco, fast impish with the monks. Burmese. Who else is going to play Burmese? And he picked it more than once, so for me, how much Hera's gassing up Burmese, it's a weird Hera thing. And the most important part, up until the Gadget set, I would have said he looks unstoppable, which he did. Gadget did take 2 games. The fashion of the round of 16 quarterfinals were rather emphatic. Major Hera vibes, especially the boomy defensive style. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. And here's the player profiles that Tarsus did create. I'll link the Twitter post underneath if you want to see these and go over them. It's worth a look because there's a lot of effort being put into these. It has a lot of stats and stuff. And I think if you're ever a first-time viewer watching Hidden Cup, these profiles would have been really nice for getting some more info. Okay, here is my next one. So that's going to be King Stephen, who I had pegged down as Doubt pretty quickly. Doubt has historically been one of the easier players to spot due to his castles, but there's also some other things to look out for. Number 1, Doubt loves Goths these days. Now, everyone when they see Goths, they kind of think that it has to be Vinch. Not too sure about that anymore. Doubt loves his Goths these days. In fact, if you go on Wikipedia and see who has played Goths the most in recent tournaments, most of them are all Doubt. Would leave you to believe he's going to be a Civ that he definitely wants in the draft, so it's going to be a Civ that they're going to pick higher, and not simply picking up Goths at the end to try something out. Now, in the first round, it was Doubt versus Vinch, so you have 2 Goth players there, but King Stephen did pick up Goths relatively early. So there's maybe a little bit of back and forth thinking that maybe Gregory could have been Vinch because he picked Goths. But the fact is, because Doubt picked up Goths so early in the draft, Vinch didn't really even get a proper chance to play them. Whereas I think previously when Goths were obviously pre-nerf, before they had their boost recently, their buff, they weren't as popular. So Vinch would generally pick them up at the end of the draft, so that was one thing I kind of picked out. I spectated the recent Doubt games. This one's unbelievable. He had auto receipt turned on. So did King Stephen versus Limnigrim. Yeah. Most of the pro players do have it turned off. No limited bypass game versus Khosrau. Come on, Doubt. The series in general gave me major flashback vibes to NEC of Viper versus Doubt. It was kind of back and forth. I think when you watch enough games, you have that certain vibe, and it's very hard to get rid of it. The quarterfinal draft is so cooked. Doubt picking Aztec second to play them on islands is another level of cooking. It's honestly impressive. Bit of a weird one. Doubt picking Aztecs to play them second on islands versus Viper picking Vikings last. Now they have some good bonuses for water, faster producing dock, pretty decent eco, but late game really bad. Obviously don't have a weak cannon galleon. Don't have Galleon as well, I think. They do have fast fire. It's a weird pick. But the amount of relics on the map, it does make some sense, because if you can get the relics, you can have a shit ton of gold. That is one thing. But probably you're going to have to land, because you don't have a weak cannon galleon or something you can hit them for range. Okay, my next obvious was Jean Bureau. Bureau. And if Jean Bureau is not Mihai, this has been the greatest bait of all time. He essentially had one super obvious trait. And the most clear trait as a card that no one else did, the palisade trick on cross to stop players from docking. So you have the corner of the pond here, and he puts little palisades along, and it stops the docks coming up. It's kind of a defensive measure. It's kind of cute. And T90 made a prediction that no one else would, that one other player would do it. It never happened. So it kind of leaned towards Mihai, and probably wasn't going to be anybody else. Also, sticking with the cross theme, it was Huns there, and Mihai's played Huns on cross before. Seems to be a bit of a Fox thing to do. So It was either going to be the greatest bait, or it was going to be very obviously Mihai. I went with Mihai. And our fourth most obvious one. So I think this was pretty clear cut as well. So I was Otto the Great as MBL. Otto everything. Had to be MBL. I'm not sure we really need to do an analysis here. The great thing about spotting MBL is the games are always interesting. Yes, I think Otto the Great games were the best. In terms of adaptability, he's such an interesting player to watch. In my opinion, the best games to watch this tournament. If I was going to highlight two things though, for sure. The Spanish game on Cup, really trying to win villagers, and get to towers is such an NBL thing to try. So I tried to end up going Supremacy Vels, where they're janked up in OP, and then go for Bomber Towers. That is just ridiculous levels of NBL. You also did tweet earlier on in the week that was like, tune in to Hidden Cup this week and see who you think is. I'm gonna be like cool smiley, the sunglasses. I don't know if NBL would have done that if he lost first round. So it kind of had me thinking that after Otto won the first round, okay, it probably is him, 100%, based off of that. The next batch of players have taken much more work to try and work out. This is where it's important to stay humble, pay attention to the details, especially the farms. Typically, once you're able to place one player and to spot the dominoes begin to fall. So this is where it does get tricky. If you can get one of these wrong, you're obviously going to get two wrong, but you can quite easily, snowball to like 4 or 5. You just get one person wrong. The first one's Sato, and that's Janjishka. And I was pretty confident about this one. Yan did a Malay Fishbim strat. I know it's common for Malay, to be honest. It's something that's always going to be in your mind. But I think it was 100% planned. Sato in the Middle East tournament did a Malay Fishbin versus Doubt. He won that series 3-1. I think winning with a strategy is very important in terms of being like repeatability. If you win with a certain strat, you're more likely to play it again. And if it was in like a lesser tourney, you're pretty confident that probably less people have seen it. So that was really good for Sato there. I think he's been saving that. And the gameplay vibe of those two games are very similar in terms of their approach. Like big walls, very passive feudal, monk and castle age, get to a castle, go karambit. Had the exact same amount of fish traps. I think it was like 32 a piece, which is obviously crazy food for Malay. I had massive Sato vibe alarm bell going off during that. Islands and Cross, 2 main maps of Sato. Also played Koreans in qualifiers versus Lex on Islands and then replayed it, in the main event. I think it was the only time someone played Koreans on Islands. Even though they have quite a lot of bonuses for them and are a decent pick. I think the GG theory has good weight, so Sato, I think, was about 40% capitalising his GG. And that was one of the most, and it did happen a few times, so it just confirmed it. And I think with the GG theory, when you're in game, you just type GG, you don't really think about it. If you've got caps lock on, you're not going to delete it, then take it off and then put it back on, or vice versa, or change. You just type and press enter. Not something you put too much thought about. Okay, next one's a quick one. Ventures to Slam the Grim. The farms don't lie. Well, they did for a couple people, but Finch's farms were very, very unique. And that was being on the top side, on the right. So if you can see the farm here, just think about the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, if it was going to be a clock. He was consistently putting his farms on that side, and it's very rare from what I noticed. So it was the gameplay matched, but the farm was final nail in the coffin. I was very, very confident on that. Here's Viper as Khosrau. Should be an easy one, but it did take a few games for me to have that major light bulb moment. And that was the round of 16 game versus Sigismund, the Arabia game of Malians. The late game expansion was such typical Viper moves. The castles were like straight line across the map, and he was starting to like close and pen in Sigismund. He also had double universities Malians. The Malian University research is quicker. He went guard tower for 1 tower to defend a gold. Kind of like, bruh, this feels so Viper. After the round to 16, I feel like I got the confirmation, got even stronger in terms of gameplay versus Steven, going back and forth versus Doubt, and finally versus Electris in the semi-final. Viper did play very, very greedy throughout the tournament, especially in those later stages. But I think part of that is down to the nabs being quite boomy in their nature. He also prioritised heavy plow an excessive amount of times, clear Viper strategy. True. And had some very clear Viper civs mixed into the drafts, and I mean like prioritising Bengalis, Japanese, Malay. I think it was before he picked like Japanese #1 to play them on Arabia versus Velez or something like that. I could be getting that mixed up, but I remember him doing something crazy there. I think he lost that series. Okay, this one became a bit more obvious as the tournament went on. That's going to be Leary as Alexios. Big question mark for Leary come into Eden Cup after NEC, of course, with the form. How hungry would he be to rectify the previous performance and prove the doubters wrong? I wasn't sure, but mainly because it's hard to know where Leary's level is at, and if he's playing a lot. This guy's mostly a ghost, and I love that about him. So it's all, you never know how Leary's going to play. Don't know how much he's been practicing. I thought the mystery is just cool, I think. He obviously got to the final. He arguably had the best micro in the tournament, which T90 was saying. I would tend to probably agree. Looks very on point. Whenever you think the best micro, it's hard to go beyond Leary. So yeah, it's a matter of being able to narrow down players once again. Who else can perform at that level? And that becomes a very small list very quickly. Loved playing with Expos and Mangoes. Very much a Leary thing to do. Talking about the micro again. And also the pathing was fixed. So it was likely going to give Leary quite a decent buff for Hidden Cup versus NEC where we had Josh's pathing. Training partner theory time. Alexios used the same Saracen strat on Cup as Jadwiga. So when you see the same strats, they're likely going to be training together. They're likely going to be in the same team. And that gave me another bit of a confirmation for who Jadwiga would be, and I put that as Hart. So we have another one that was heavily influenced with farm theory to help confirm how Jadwiga is. I'm fairly confident we have them nailed down. As mentioned, the Cup strategy used by Alexios means trading partners. It would be likely for Leary and Hart to trade 100%, so it was just Saracens on Cup. The same thing, playing for the greedy FC. Hart playing Vietnamese on Arabia, that is so typically Hart. Jadwiga Hart are very consistent with the first farming spot, since their gameplay matches up, only increases the chances of the same being. But I already have the theory before that Hart could be Jadwiga. I'm then going to check farms to make sure that it matches up. And if it matches up, another thumbs up. And I think the overall score gave a very Hart MVL vibe. I was 4-3, the only one of the tournament. It was very back and forth, and that's, if they guys are going to play a best of 7, that's kind of the result I expect them to get. Now, this one I was concerned about. Sebastian. Alfred the Alpaca. And I say here I'm nervous. I do think there are chances we could have egg on our face. Seb went undefeated in qualifiers, but everyone has been very happy to put him as Alfred. I was concerned, but the drafting, the strategy thing did come across as very Fox. Felt 75-80% in this one. It did stay humble. The gameplay track was Seb, but also looked a little nervous at times. Maybe perhaps someone's first big time at a major tournament. Yes. Again with the Huns on cross, again feels very Fox. Trading partner theory does kick in there. And there was some debate from Daisy that Alfred versus Jan were trading partners, going for the same strats and working this out in the series. Fox players versus Toe seems like it could be likely, but Margugu said he wasn't sure. He's always truthful, right? It turned out that he was Alfred, and thank God he was. I was slightly concerned that somehow Sebastian had played an absolute blinder and was Alexios, and Weary still had NEC form, and potentially Weary was somebody like Alfred, which would have been a massive shock. Imagine that happened on a reveal. That would have been crazy. But as it turned out, Sebastian was actually Alfred. The next matches where we have to cook and rely on some information that we've been given, and believe that these things are massive indicators of who's who. This section may shock you. They are the Humblers. And first up, guys, Cato is Gregory the 7th. As I state, right where I'm probably going to lose some of you guys, right? Let me explain. Not just myself, but obviously Nikov's been getting a lot of flack with this, so that people cannot see that Tata would lose Goro. First major point here. If we didn't have this information, it would have been totally different. Tato tweeted during the opening rounds. It appears, well, it wasn't, only if you paid attention to the handbook, read handbook, you would have noticed this. It appears that he was sick and was not doing so great after a bad few days. So the day he tweeted was like just after they played, and that lined up with the opening rounds for Eden Cup. Playing a 2-hour game, then looking exhausted afterwards certainly was an odd performance and somebody that looked not 100% health. So that Goff's game on evacuation versus Jordan's for so long. Went on for so long. And yeah. I think that ended Tato very quickly. Especially if you're sick. Gregory typed GG well played, comma, GL next, emphasis on the comma. The comma is going to be so important here. We'll touch back on that when we get to Gajamata. But Tato is shown a history to type exactly that. The draft is extremely GL, Koreans, and it seems like Tato is listening to Doubt about the Goffs and evacuation. Tato and Doubt are good friends. I think it's very likely they shared notes on this one. It seems likely. Maybe Doubt eventually convinced Tato that this is a good strat. He was also eliminated in the first round last time. I know there's been a huge improvement since then, but please, for the love of God, don't tell me this cannot happen. It happened again. Unfortunate for Tato. He's going to have to qualify again. Unfortunately for all the qualifiers. Okay, ACCM, Gajamata. Nikov deserves a shout out, guys. He's going to be getting some burgers. I truly believe Nikov was cooking on this one, guys. He said he has seen this kind of gameplay far too much to be mistaken here. He said he was 100% ACCM. I love the fucking balls on this guy. Argugu's going to owe this guy dinner and a few drinks. Okay, first point. At first I thought it was just a Tato. The strategy is similar. Possible. The fact that he was winning, right, makes you think more of Tato versus ACCM. No disrespect to ACCM. You're definitely going to think Tato first. You would expect him to go through to the quarterfinals over ACCM. All things said and done, you know. The Cumin Start Rush seems very Tato. The Saracens pick. The Poles pick. These seem like Tato steps, you know. I scraped through some ACCM VODs. I was obviously checking for some farms, but the first game I went into, Rage Forest on flank, Cumin Turret Rush. Light bulb moment. It was great. The GG on Mudfall versus second round. I can't remember who that was against now. But that was the most ACCM GG of the full tournament. Because it was the polls on Mudfall and the game went on forever when it probably was long done. Also, I did Town Bell that game. ACCM literally has an emote on his channel dedicated to this. It's a bit of a meme. And I don't think it happened to anyone else during the full tournament as well. So it seemed like a very major indicator that it was going to be ACCM. Farm Theory. ACCM's action in the first farm is insane. Gaja is the same. I think Gaja maybe missed on the first farm a couple of times throughout the tournament. And when I was looking for ACCM's VOD, I was like, man, ACCM is super particular and super accurate on his first farm. It was definitely a major influence to nailing down ACCM was Gajamata. And yeah, thanks to the Gauss for checking the Tato farms, and the Gauss was adamant that Tato farms were not Gaja farms. So if you can say that, then probably rules you down to Gaja being Yo or being ACCM. Taking people off. Keep narrowing it down. That's what you want to do. Importantly, okay, the GG well played, good luck next. When this came on screen, I'm not going to lie, kind of shit myself. That it was pretty much the same message as Greg, but no comma, no comma, no comma. Did Tato just have forgotten to, or changed his typing habits? The way you type is the way you type. You don't use a comma, you don't use a comma. And Mimi done the great research on this. Turns out ACCM has said the exact same words, and once I found that out, I was A-okay. And yeah, ACCM I think was the least guest player out of all the viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Now here's the one that probably gave me a decent amount of trouble. That was Mr. Yoa's Emperor Sigismund, aka Siggy. Also, potentially my favourite player to watch, so I didn't want him to be dead. Knocked out. The most important things for me. Romans, Celts, and Bohemians. These are all very Yosefs. And then you combine them all together. It's really hard to get past that kind of combination. Especially Romans. Yo has used them in major tournaments before, won with them. So if you win with a Civ for a certain strat, like I said, you're more likely to use it against like rock, paper, scissors. You win with rock, you're more likely to use rock next time. If you lose a rock, then you're more likely to change it. So once you lose with something, you're kind of like, I got to change the approach. Is it actually still good? You're a lot less likely to use it. Talking about the actual games, I mean, for going Elite Load Raider and Heavy Scorp on evacuation, who else is going to do that? I think like I only get like ACCM, Yo vibes when I see something like that. Elite Load Raider and Heavy Scorpion. I only ACCM Yo. I'm thinking in the round of 16. Chinese community seem pretty set on this being Yo, and I believe even Lex commented that deer pushing was very Yo-like. Lex is his teammate. Excuse me. He's seen a lot of Yo push and deer. Rely on the local knowledge. Rely on them. The knowledge is good. They probably watch way more games than you. This is one of my best points. The guy's called Emperor Sigismund. Siggy for short. You love to smoke cigarettes. Emperor Siggy. Obviously. Pretty damn good. And out first round, people are saying like, oh, you can't lose in the first round. Well, 4-1 versus Viper doesn't seem too unlikely, to be honest. Yo is always somewhat of a reputation of starting slow in big events, and with brand new maps, there's a high risk that could have happened. It did. My one issue was the farms. I seen a lot of bottom left farms from Siggy in the tournament. Didn't see that from Yo Games and Ladder. So it wasn't too much of an issue, but I was assured that Yo was doing bottom left on additional TCs. So there was at least some sort of track there, or like showing some sign of tendency. But as far as starting TC, there wasn't a match. But that's fine, because I think everything else added up was way more powerful than having to confirm with the farm. It doesn't change anything else. Any of these other facts. Okay, every good story has to have a love triangle. Well, not exactly a love triangle sorts, but I did not expect to go in the Hidden Cup with a degree of confusion with these three. This was so cooked, guys. To be specific, Jordan with Ganji and Barrels, I think that was to be expected, but no part-time Jordan as a bit of a wild card. So I can maybe see myself getting confused about Barrels and Ganji. But Jordan and those with those two? It's odd. So yeah, this was the unexpected humbling trio. And the first one I tried to get confirmed out of these three was Ganji's Robergi Scar. Everyone was looking for the Amazing Monk micro, not just me. And I don't think we ever did get the chance to see it. A few things that were really important. Flag Spike Theory. This is one of the most cooked, cracked theories in all of Hidden Cup 5. This was thanks to Happy Leaves. He inputted... So he's the guy that runs Spike Dashboard. In about 800,000 games, the exact phrasing lag spike. So these words, with no space, has been said about 3 times. Once by Salted Pepper, with Great versus still in the qualifiers, by the way, and twice by Ganji. Super rare. We have a match. This is like, if you're a detective, you got like a massive DNA hit right there. You're like, yes, we got him. And it did feel like that. It's just super unlikely that anyone else would have said it then. 800,000 games. You've got been said twice, and this player's in the tournament. It has to be. Surely. Maybe. The Swedish community seems pretty set. This is Ganji. I was told this, and then I verified it within a member of the community. But I did a little bit more digging just to make sure that they think that. During evacuation, he does the long bore layers, so he wants to put the palisades down to block the boars, bring them in from the mainland into the starting TC. That happens in RF all the time because you have the additional boars on Black Forest. The farms are quite unique, starting on the left-hand side often, so Ganji did that in the qualifiers, and then Robert did that in 3 of the games as well, of the 5 that he played. So there was definitely, and this is rare, so there was definitely something there. I was like, okay, there is slight pattern, could be him. It's definitely backing up the theory that Ganji is Robert Giscard. Again, it's like something used for confirmation. This is the most obvious one. His hero is literally wearing blue and yellow, guys. This is so obvious. Like Sweden flag. His helmet is literally a Sweden flag turned vertical. Or hang on. Like that. Okay, barrels. Pachacuti. Cannot believe these are the last two. The ones that gave me the most trouble. I cannot believe Jordan Barrows are the two I've struggled with the most to place. It's the only two I'm nervous about. True. Like, these guys are making me sweat. And Barrows was the first one to get revealed. So after Barrows came up, I felt very confident I was going to get every other one right. Which is the crazy thing, because I knew everything else was probably going to fall into place. The only nervous one was, of course, the NATO thing, but I was strangely confident about that. There was a gamble between these two, and some people gambled wrong. I checked a few games of Barrows. I noticed him going with an extra house in Dark Age regularly. Patch had done this in a few games too. So instead of like maybe when you're going to mill, Patch was making 2 houses and then going from like it'd be like 1725 have that extra housing space, which Barrels did in a few games I noticed as well. I was like, that's actually not all that normal. Might be in a map you want to go FC, but you're going to be increasing the pop anyway, but Barrels did that quite regularly. Barrels is known, he is a strategist, particularly. Obviously, all getting said during TTL. I didn't really see Jordan playing Sicilian's evacuation. Doesn't feel very Jordan in 2024. I could see Barrels doing it. So now we're trying to distinguish between the players. Is this something they would do? That's something they wouldn't do. Bypass and Hidden Forts are two more closed maps. Kind of maps that I would expect Barrels to pick. Barrels in recent years regularly takes a game from her. 4-1 result. History repeating itself. And actually, Jordan doesn't take games from her too often. And then, of course, Dave Hunt assured me it was Barrels. But Barrels is Pachacuti. Which maybe my last one I was least confident about, but just by process of elimination, I had nowhere else to put Jordan, so Jordan had to be Samanguru. And yeah, it gave me the most trouble. There was questions of how much he's played before the main event. Viper's kind of confirmed he didn't prepare too much. Yeah, I mean, even with the results, I could still see well-prepared Jordan beating Mihai 4-1 and then getting smashed by Howard 4-0, which is exactly what happened. I looked at the bracket and think, yes, that makes sense. The Monk micro on Bay, it did seem too good to be for Jordan, considering just months ago he was clicking units one by one when it looks like they were control grouped in a big game. So if you go and watch some VODs on YouTube, he's like one-clicking monks onto skirms for some reason in a tournament in Masters Arena. Doesn't look good. Game 1, Suman did the power side trick to lure his boar in on slopes. Jordan does this quite often, guys. And slopes isn't a map you shouldn't really need to use a power side trick, but he loves doing it for some reason. And it was a bit of a giveaway for me. The Islands home map makes sense based off the previous Hidden Cup. Oh, that's formatted wrong there. Don't know what happened. Obviously, he was called the Admiral before. He wants to play in Islands. The Sibs and map choices overall feel Jordan. For me, he can be a bit vanilla at times. He's usually pretty meta, and not stuff that's too nuts or too cooked up, like the Sicilian's evacuation. And the Monk micro was better than me expected, and that's how you did it, guys. 16 out of 16. Yeah, hopefully that helped a little bit. If there is going to be another one, it's kind of unsure if there will be at this moment, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of my thought process and how I work things out. Obviously the research, I had rec access because I was granted it, but I did say I wasn't going to be casting the event. I was going to be doing some deeper dives into players and trying to work things out. Yeah, great event by T90, all the organisers, all that stuff. Good job.